Welcome to the six.
Welcome to the suite. We're so excited you're here, Nuno. Truly and utterly. Please, if we can just take a minute to introduce you. Nuno, you are the SVP of Brand and Marketing at Sleep Country Canada.
That is correct. SVP of Clare. Nuno Bamberg, SVP of Brand Marketing for Sleep Country Canada. We oversee brand and marketing for our portfolio brands. So Sleep Country, Casper, Endy, Silk Snow, Hush, Bad Bath and Beyond, as well as Boom. There you go. You got them all.
Pretty good repertoire right there.
That is an incredible portfolio of sleep performance.
Oh, and Samba, because we're in Europe, so I couldn't forget that, right?
Yeah.
So, and Sympathy.
It's we're very excited to have you here, especially in this special edition that we're shooting here live from Cannes. Very excited for that because your perspective on the conversation about what's been happening over the last few years, but more so what's happened this year here in Cannes, is one that I just find so fascinating. So give a bit of context as to like what your background is, because it's massively impressive.
Oh, thank you. I would say I was born inside of creative agency, if that makes sense. So I come from creative agency. I was with Publicis for nearly 10 years. And before that, another 13 years back in Brazil, in other places in the globe. And my family comes from creative agency as well. I made a transition to the corporate marketing side of things in 2023 onto Sleep Country, where I again have the pleasure of holding the role of a brand and marketing across our portfolio brands. But I always like to say that because I was born inside of a creative agency family, my dad's a creative guy, my brother runs an agency. Creativity is part of my culture and DNA. And
I say that about swimwear, but creative's much cooler.
So I always joke that I always introduce myself as a business individual first, who happens to have a marketing background by family and by design, who utilizes marketing as a great way to express business strategy.
It's and like what a ride. You've lived internationally. You've led some of the biggest and boldest brands into some of the most crazy places, including Sleep Country. And so much of that in the Canadian marketplace. So we just want to pause for a second because we are here in Cannes and we do know that we're here supporting NABS. For those of you who don't know, NABS is the National Advertising Benevolent Society for Canada, underneath several different brand and banners across the country. But we're very excited to say thank you to a few different sponsors today. So it's the big shout out to Perion, who donated $1,000 to NABS this week for the Cans Awareness campaign. So thank you so much. Aside from that, the changes this year here at the festival, there's been a lot of changes here. And so I'd love to hear some of your take on them.
Interesting, because I mentioned before that I think of myself as a business professional with a marketing background. And I think this is the year where Cannes introduced the Creative Lion Award, which what I love about that is Cannes has always been about celebrating creativity. And it's always going to be about that, obviously. I think what that does introduce the conversation, though, is celebrating the organizations who have always bet on creativity as the growth driver. Because you can always have a fantastic year. Having a fantastic decade, 2 decades, 2.5 decades, it takes a lot more than just creative work.
Yeah.
It takes also a culture and a leadership that allows for creative work to be the bread and butter of the company, and to understand marketing as a way to communicate effectively to consumers to drive growth. And so I found that, well, obviously great creative ideas come from creativity itself. Great creative environments come from leadership. And so what we try to do as the country as relates to that is create an environment where creativity can foster. So hopefully we can become one of those brands that do support a campaign and an idea, even when the numbers aren't there just yet, or to support the continuation thereof, even when performance is yet to arrive. And so it's a little hard to do that at times, but it's a thing that I think all the brands should be doing. I'm excited just to can celebrate and recognize that.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting. We tend in this industry to reward instantaneous gratification because it feels good in the moment. But really, those brands that have that deep rooted legacy in our culture, they make part of our cultural moments. Claire, what do you think?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say about that is more that pretty much every agency, creative agency, has had some incredible ideas, but the ones that actually get through to actually being executed, it's because of the leadership, it's because of the culture that allows them to be delivered. And it's normally quite risky. It's something a bit different. It's a bit kind of unknown. When you're talking about building growth, you don't have maybe that path ahead that's kind of proven. And so a lot of the ideas that get awarded here actually are absolutely due to some incredible creative people, but it's because they've been allowed to put that into the world. And I love that that's now being celebrated for sure.
Great.
Yeah. I think in terms of changes for me, I literally arrived this morning, so I'm still very jet lagged and have not managed to see much so far.
And yet, look at you.
Why, thanks. Good lighting. But I would say more just I came a decade ago. So I think just from what I've heard from everyone is how much it has changed and how much bigger, more maybe commercial it is than it's ever been before. Kind of the scale of all of the experiential and the different executions that are happening here versus just the awards and the executions that were done for awards. Now it seems like this is even more so award worthy in itself, what people are putting on.
It's a great point there. And actually, my first time in Canada, ever.
That was shocking to me.
Ever. And I had the same feeling because I probably had a bit of a bias to your point, Claire, around the notion that we're celebrating a lot of great creative works. We're perhaps not looking enough deep under the hood. And my impression here is being the opposite. We've had very intelligent business conversations that led into the ability to create incredible campaigns and work because of the fact that those campaigns reflect a very well-aligned organization from the inside out. And that's been a beautiful thing to see live.
I actually think that one of the biggest things, but like contextual relevance side of things, is that here in Cannes, one of the truly unique things about this festival is you have everything from the creatives to the ad techs to the media agencies, clients, etc. And you can have those conversations that really move the needle in your business. And it's really interesting because it does highlight to me the importance of in real life and those in real life moments that we've been really sticky about talking about. We see it huge with Gen Z. They love that in real life, everything is like experiential, etc. How that's really moving into where we're going. And I think what I'm seeing here in Cannes and what I'm hearing a lot from talking to people over the last few days is exactly that deep rooted meaningful connection. And I think that we're going to see, it sort of goes into like my next question of how do you see brands responding to the in real life type of conversation that's been so prevalent?
So that's a very timely question because we were very fortunate with Sleep Country. Hopefully everyone saw the last Drake Abu Dhabi.
How could you not see?
Yeah, so there was a very in real life moment. So I go to the gym very early in the morning, and literally that Friday I woke up at 5 in the morning, 4:30 in the morning to go to the gym. My phone was blowing up. I had text message from our team up and down, and I shall call her out specifically. Deb Conte, my marketing director, had texted me at midnight. The moment it dropped, and my first reaction was this what Drake is wearing a coat with our logo on it? Is this AI? It makes no sense. What's going on? And so I replied to her. It's 4:30 in the morning, and I'm assuming she's not going to reply back. She replied immediately, going, "Yes, and I've been working on ideas since midnight. Where have you been?" I'm like, okay. So by 6:30, she was posting already. And so to your point, Nikki, it was just, I think we've built a culture, kudos to our leadership by and large, our CEO, CFO, our C-suite, and our entire team, a culture to let the team encourage the notion of I can fail within the controlled environment. And this notion that in the end, marketing is part of culture. Brands, products, services are part of culture, right? And so the idea was, can you react to culture as fast as culture itself exists? To do so, you've got to remove it all.
The speed of culture.
Correct. And so to do so, you just have to remove all the blockers along the way. And it's not to say we were not counseling with our counselors. We were, with the degree going, okay, Amanda, but how close to the line can I step without stepping over the line, and so on and so forth. And that's all happening at 6:30 in the morning. I'm with the media team at 7 in the morning. By 6 p.m. the same day, 12 hours later, there was 2 contests launched, a new radio campaign launched, an out-of-home campaign launched. We all know the classic, I don't love my bed and my mama. So obviously we had to steal that line. Yeah. Because we also love our beds. So we had a full marketing campaign live by the next 12 hours from launch.
Which is incredible. Absolutely.
And it's all the team. Honestly, Claire, it's all my team. It's Dab, it's Sandra, it's John, it's Harry, and it's them bringing it alive, and their teams bringing it alive, and me getting out of the way and making sure that they are supporting and feeling confident that no matter what comes out of it, they've done the right thing.
This is why you're one of my favorite culture brand leaders.
I think it also takes a strong brand. You have to have very clear guidelines. You have to know the rules. What you're saying, like how close can I play to the edge? You know where your brand sits and what kind of a tone it'll have and what kind of a conversation it'll play. And that means at 4:30/midnight, depending on when you wake up, not your team. It means that they can already start ideating because they know where they're allowed to play versus waiting till you're awake to ask your permission if this is something that we can jump on, if it's something that we're even interested in. You've already set that kind of groundwork that this is something that we can play in.
Yeah, I'm totally true. And I think it's a very interchangeable relationship in the sense of I've learned so much from them and they've earned so much of my trust, which has been awesome at what they do. That shame on me if I didn't do it. Right. So it's more than awarded and it comes from their work. And quite frankly, I'm just lucky and fortunate to be on the ride. And I'm lucky and fortunate they haven't kicked me out of the island this year. But
An idol.
I'm having a good time.
How has the relationship between culture, media, and creativity changed over the last few years?
Great question. I think it's become more and more intrinsic and interchangeable as well as inseparable, right? In the sense of with digital, with AI, they're all the same thing, right? It's a reality of before we used to have this cultural moment where we would call people, where we talk about it at school, whatever else. I'm not going to give away how old I am, but now it just happens in the moments, right? It just happens exactly as I mentioned, where by 6 a.m, my entire organization knows that Drake did this thing that happened a couple of hours ago. Everybody's sleeping because you should get sleep, but now it just happens in the moment. And so I think the reality is we have this very absurdly awesome opportunity to turn every point of connection with the consumer in a point of conversion. And conversion doesn't always seem transaction. Also means loyalty. Also means consideration. Always means memorability. And so because of media, digital, and everything we're so in culture, so interconnected, as a brand, your role becomes how can I be useful, meaningful, and play a role in your life when I'm not actually selling you on something. And in our case, because our hero product is something you're going to interact with and purchase every 8 to 10 years, that is my entire loyalty program. It happens in between the purchase, not at the purchase moment. Otherwise, I won't see you the next decade. And so we work very hard to have that meaning in people's lives and just be useful. In the end, we're all consumers ourselves. And I always compare marketing to professional sports in the sense that I've never played hockey myself, but I swear I can play better than Matthews, although I catch. And marketing is very similar, where we're all consumers. And by design, your peers within the organization, while not marketers background, feel like they can do the thing that you do, although it's not the thing that they do, but they're also humans. And so the more we interact with each other and respect the fact that marketing is part of culture, which is part of media, which is part of the same thing, it's easy to have a conversation for sure.
Claire, from your point of view, how are brands reacting like swiftly from like the agency perspective into that? Like the frameworks and like that's where I get tied up in the like my natural brain goes to how many operational layers that has to go through.
Yeah, I think you have a unique situation in terms of having an in-house team in terms of creative and media with then help from agency. I think there's a lot of, as I said, planning that goes into being spontaneous.
Yeah.
So knowing that you have certain budgets, whether you have certain creative assets, where you have the ability to be able to jump on something. There's a difference between just a tweet or a message that you're putting back out, a response, a reply, community management style on social versus what you guys did, which was then taking that and making an out-of-home campaign and a radio campaign and an in-store campaign. And that takes a lot more coordination and a lot more forethought in terms of when you're using agencies to have access to that functionality and to be able to do it. So the best success we've seen is where you have intentionally set yourself up for, we're going to have some campaigns. We're going to have some annual planning. We're going to know our audiences. We're going to know our swim lanes, which is something that we were talking about earlier in terms of, especially when you have a portfolio of brands, who's going to play in what space. And then you have to have the structure in place to be able to react to things and be able to jump on things and know that you have that permission and that accessible budget in order.
It's all about building the operational rails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the relationship I find, especially with a brand agency, having had experience on both sides, is also the relationship. The client or the brand allowing the agency to know well enough how your operation actually runs, to anticipate what other potential problems you're going to encounter as you present an idea that has to be quickly approved and shifted, and vice versa. Is also you as a client or as a corporate brand being able to understand how your agency operates, what are the ins and outs that you can play together to work around a cultural moment despite all the potential barriers that may encounter.
I
That's key in my mind's eye.
I would totally agree with both of those. And I will just close the series of questions by saying I also think that great partners, because we were chatting about this earlier today, having partners that can see things like how your creative is performing with like instantaneous or as close to instant as possible so that you can optimize those real life moments, having partners that can distribute it, all of those things that you can get to. Having those great partners already like in your systems and in your ethos just makes that so much easier because they become tried, tested, and true with you.
100% agree, Nikki. In the end of the day, is what to say is, as a marketer, if I could give you certainty, I would be leaving here 365 a day, retired by now. All that I could give you is clarity. As a marketer, I can give you a lot of clarity, and to give you clarity, data and measurement and understanding of it. So couldn't agree more.
All right, my friend. We have one last question for you as we wrap up every 6 weeks, which is if you had one piece of life advice for our Sixers today, not for health, not for wealth, and not for business, but for life, what would that be?
Say the hard thing loud. It's very hard to do so. But saying the thing nobody wants to hear is often the thing that everybody needs to hear. It's very hard to, but yeah, that's what I'll say.
Oh, yeah. That one. The whole room gasped when you said that. Well, on that note,
Monsieur calls me and goes, so here's a hard thing. No, so that's
You've just given everyone permission to tell you the hard thing.
okay by HR team, the great call to Kiwi. Yeah.
And Deb, who did the amazing campaign, you can call him out. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming and joining us in our special Can edition of the 6 Weeks.
With your hands.